Hello, everyone. I'm Krista Moore, and welcome to the Krista Moore Talk Show. This is brought to you by K Coaching and ID Growth. ID Growth is dedicated to the success of the independent dealer, and this talk show format is a new way to learn from industry experts and thought leaders as they share their growth ideas and success stories. Our topic today is promotional products, and the big question for all of you is it for you? Today I have the pleasure of interviewing Pete Redondo. He's the VP of Sales at Regency Business Solutions. Pete has been instrumental in the growth and expansion of promotional products for Regency, and they've grown to a $60 million dealer in the past 12 years. He has his battle scars, and maybe, Pete, you lost a few hairs over this along the way. But so why don't you go ahead and do a brief introduction for everybody, and then we'll go ahead and get started.
All right, very good. Thanks, Krista. So just to give a little background on Regency, we started as a traditional office products dealer in 2002, and we were looking for additional value that we could bring to the customer, additional revenue streams, just like everybody that's on this call today, and kind of fell into selling promotional products. We actually started selling print first, and then we had some customers that asked us about promotional items and apparel, and you know what, we were really excited about it. It was something new and different and fun, and it's a growing industry, and we thought that there was tremendous opportunities, and it's really grown into a very important part of our business.
That's great. So the reason that I have you here today is you went from 0 to 15 million in helping them grow this portion of the business. So I want to hear some experiences, and so that we could really learn from what you've experienced over the past 5-6 years. Let me just say, if you could start out with a good overview of the promotional products industry in itself. What does that look like?
Sure. Well, anyone that was at the ABC conference probably heard in some of the opening remarks, and I know a lot of us have experienced this, that traditional office product sales are trending downward and will continue to trend down. I think Wayne Beecham said 3% year over year. Promotional products industry is going the other direction. In 2015, annual sales were just under $21 billion. And if you look back from 2009, when it was $15.6 billion, it's consistently grown year over year up to that number of 20.8. A couple things that I think are really important. Margins are pretty strong. They're in the mid-30s, and that's post-delivery because customers are accustomed to paying for delivery for these types of items. And I think another thing that's real important is that the number one product category is apparel. 2 years ago, apparel was about 30% of all promotional product sales, and now it's 35%.
I was going to ask you, because some people may need maybe a clear definition on what all is inclusive in that promotional products category that we refer to. You mentioned wearables and apparel.
Yeah, I think, most people are relatively familiar with what ad specialties are. If it's got their logo on it, there's probably a promotional product supplier that'll sell it. The major categories would be wearables, or we call it apparel. Wearables is an industry term, but jackets, hats, T-shirts, dress shirts like this, those are scrubs, uniforms. All of those things would be apparel, and that's over a third of all promotional product sales fit into that category. The next largest category is at about 10% is drinkware, so mugs, thermoses, water bottles. Here, I got one behind me. Hey, things like this. Your Tervis mugs, Yeti mugs. That's drinkware. That's about 10%. And writing instruments, which is just a fancy word for saying pens and pencils and highlighters, are about 8%. Some other categories are growing, but those are the primary categories, over 50% of the market.
Yeah, and so when I think about the market in general too, and I refer back to the office products industry, we know that in the past 15 years, we've gone from 15,000 dealers to 2,400 dealers. So the amount of distributors and dealers has really gone down through mergers, acquisitions, or just going out of business. What's that landscape look like in terms of the types of resellers or the size, or how many are there?
There are over 23,000, and this research is from the Promotional Products Association International, which is kind of the authority on industry research. So I'm pulling these numbers from them. But there's 23,000 promotional products distributors in the United States. 22,000 of those have sales less than 2.5 million. So what, in our experience, what that says to us is, and this is why we were so excited about getting into the business, was that most of the larger, even the larger customers, what we would call a program account, that spend $50,000 a year or more just on promotional items, are comfortable buying from a local distributor. Even though Staples and Office Depot are number 1 and number 2 in promotional product sales in the world, they're virtually invisible in the mid-market on the customers that most of the independent dealers have today that they would call on. They're not buying from Staples or Office Depot. They're buying from a local distributor.
So when I hear that, and I'm thinking about independent dealers, is there an opportunity, do you think, for them to create maybe a strategic partnership with a local promotional products company and or some acquisition opportunities to get into this business?
Yeah, I think that's definitely an avenue that, that's not how we did it. We muscled our way through some very expensive learning curves in the business. But I think that there are a lot of opportunities for smaller promotional products distributors that have a lot of industry knowledge, maybe don't have the resources that a larger company might have, and they'd be really interested in that. And potentially, a strategic alliance or, yes, even an acquisition, I think, is something to consider to help jumpstart it.
Right. I mean, in terms of the independent office products dealer having many, many customers, per se, to be able to
That's right.
that. So you had mentioned about you bootstrapping it or starting it kind of from scratch and learning along the way. And those are the things that I really want to hear more about. So why don't you tell us about some of those challenges, some of the pitfalls that you had as you were starting out and throughout growing it?
Well, I'll be happy to share that. So, we got into the business for probably very similar to maybe some people on the phone, or that's why they're considering it, is their customers ask them, can I buy this from you? And so our very first promotional products order was an existing client of ours. They bought office products. They needed some mugs, some coffee mugs. And we said, sure, we'll do it. So we actually bought them from a promotional products distributor. We didn't have an ASI number yet ourselves. Everything seemed to go great. It seemed really simple. Customer got them. They loved them. It was a $2,500 order. We made 40 points in margin. Nice. Wow, it can't be this easy. Yeah. So we got an ASI number, and what's funny is that same customer came back just a month or so later and said, hey, we need to duplicate that order. Well, now we were in the driver's seat, and we said, okay, well, we got this, and placed the order. Got some hang-ups in production time, and the only way the customer was going to get their mugs on time because they needed them for an event was we were going to have to overnight ship them from California to the tune of $1,300. So very expensive lesson, and we found out, that was our first experience in discovering this isn't as easy as it appeared, and there's probably a lot more to it.
I'm thinking the supplier or whoever was shipping it certainly wasn't going to incur any costs for that freight or it being late?
No, there was no production timeline guarantees. They had told us, hey, this is just, average production time 3 to 5 days, and we just didn't understand. And we didn't make that mistake again, but there was a lot of other ones that we discovered along the way.
So why don't you tell us just kind of quickly, 3 or 4 of the key differences between selling promotional products and office products in terms of how it could pose some challenges?
Sure. I would say the first thing is everything is custom. So there are no returns in the custom world. So if it doesn't get done right, then if you want to keep the customer, you got to eat the job. It gets very expensive. There's a lot of low quality, junk out there. I mean, there are millions of promotional product SKUs, and there's thousands of suppliers, and so trying to navigate what's actually a quality product and what's a reliable supplier to partner with, that takes some time. And we certainly have had our share of a customer wants a specific item, we get it, they get it in their hands, and they're really disappointed. And even though the customer's the one that picked it out, they're relying on us. So that was challenging. Pricing's pretty complicated. And so, understanding all the different running charges and setups, and it doesn't take, it takes a high attention to detail to make sure that you quote the customer correctly. You mentioned, we talked about managing production times. It's not sitting in a warehouse, either in our building or at the wholesaler, where, great, you want it, there tomorrow.
Yeah.
So that's another challenge. And graphics are a whole other issue, too.
I was going to ask you about graphics, because I've heard from some other dealers that have started to get into promotional products that they felt they needed to hire an additional staff, like a designer. So what are your thoughts on that? And in addition, not only additional staff for designers, but perhaps even a specialist or a promotional products only sales rep. Why don't you tell us about your philosophies there?
Well, the first thing on graphics, we tried to outsource it in the beginning, and it was too difficult to be able to be responsive enough to the customer and what they needed, and we didn't have any control. So while there's certainly people it could be outsourced to, and even going overseas, it's really cheap. It's not the same as having that staff member that can manage it. So hiring either part-time and then eventually growing into a full-time graphic design, I think is it's a gotta have. As far as a specialist or sales staff, that wasn't our experience. We didn't do it that way. If I had a do-over, and I think our managing partner would agree with me, we would have hired a promotional products specialist to go out and talk to our customers, because it's a completely different sale. It's a different sales process. It's a different decision maker.
Well, it's very manual. I mean, you're talking about a lot of steps and touches that the traditional office product sales rep is not used to.
That's right, and there's a lot of consultation involved, and so having the credibility and the education level, and just the general base knowledge. Certainly what happened to us is we generated a lot of quotes. We had a lot of relationships. They were more than happy to say, sure, you can go ahead and quote that, but they didn't turn into very many orders. Yeah. And so, salespeople got a little demoralized about it.
People off. Yeah, I would imagine. So
exactly
I've heard some things here, Pete. I've heard lots of returns, millions of SKUs, highly manual, may have to hire additional staff, may need a designer. So,
did I scare anybody?
I think you're probably scared a few people on the line, and they've decided, all right, I got what I came for. This is not the business that I want to be in. Let's turn it around a little bit. Obviously, it's been profitable for you. You guys are in it for the long haul, and you've seen some successes. We know lots of independents that are starting to consider selling promotional products or have gotten an ASI number, and they're starting to introduce promotional products. But I think there's a difference between those and perhaps what Regency has done as far as being all in. So if you were to say the top 3 kind of must-haves to be successful, really successful in promotional products as an add-on to office products, what would they be?
Well, when you talk about being all in, it's got to be an investment, and we talked about it a little bit already. Got to be willing to invest in the personnel. Got to be willing to invest in the systems. Got to be willing to invest in technology. That is really, really important. And the 90% this is like a number that I found kind of buried in that industry report I was sharing earlier. 90% of the growth from 2014 to 2015 is online sales or corporate store.
Wow, that's a big number.
Online sales, yes. So that is where the growth is, and that's where that industry is going. So that's really important.
It's not a matter of should have the technology investment. You absolutely would have to have that in order to capture your market share.
In my opinion, yes, and because they can get, and we did too. We can get promotional order here, T-shirt order there. Hey, I need 10,000 pens for this, or I need something for a trade show. It's not that we didn't generate orders, because we did, but without having a technology offering to create a web experience for them to buy, we weren't going to win the type of customers that are going to generate recurring revenue that are going to grow over time.
Yep.
Yep.
So I hear investment, just in general, technology, people, resources. What would the number 2 success factor be?
I would say having the mindset from top down with ownership, management, sales team, that it's not just another SKU that's in the catalog. Like, hey, I'm going to sell cleaning and break room. Yeah. And it's something that's on the shelf at the wholesaler, or maybe a Jansan partner that I'm using. It's a completely different strategy, and changing the way that we went to market. The biggest impact was when we were what we call selling value-added services, which are promotional products and apparel and printing, was we were selling a completely different strategy. Yeah. And we're talking to a different decision maker, different buyer, and longer sales cycle. We had to bring a little bit of a different value prop to the market. So I think that mindset is really important.
And when I hear mindset and you're talking about this success factor, I also can relate to a lot of independents that perhaps at the top, the business owner, the sales leader, needs to be all in. And not just, hey, I'm giving you a chance to sell more stuff to your customers, but rather they live it, love it, lead it in terms of the strategy every day. And I could see how that could make the difference between those that are dabbling and those that are really successful. So what would you say number 3 is in terms of?
I would say number 3 is, the goal is to win those program customers that I mentioned earlier. Mm-hmm. The clients that really have some unique needs, so that we can create, value beyond, I can get that item. Yeah. So to be able to get those program customers, you have to have a program customer offering. And what that looks like is, number 1, custom online web stores. And I'm not talking about Sage or ASI or some of the suppliers like Sanmar or Leeds or Logomark that they've got an online store that, hey, they put your logo on it and a customer can buy. Those off-the-shelf type of things, that's not the kind of technology I'm talking about. I'm talking about the same type of high-end experience that customers want with large, dispersed, multi-user, multi-location accounts in office products. They want the same thing for their promotional products and apparel purchasing. They want to be able to control their spend. They want to be able to control their brand. They want to be able to control who's buying. They need visibility on what those people are buying, and they need good reporting. So that's just one piece that they need. There's some other things too that go along with that. And we've got third-party warehouses that we work with. We've got a high-end inventory module, because in a lot of cases they need to be able to inventory these items to get the buy rate they want, and also be able to distribute it to their end users quickly. It's got to be automated. It's got to have an automated supply chain. You got to have a high-end invoicing solution.
I'm picturing the program customer going to their site that is totally customized for them. It looks like it's their internal portal, and they have all the selections that they need, plus the features that you're describing. So I would imagine that there are certain industries that is needed, as well as more lucrative for you. So what would be some program type customers or industries?
Yeah, some of the verticals that we've been real successful with are automobile dealerships.
Yeah.
Retail, believe it or not, a lot of retail locations, because they're multi-location and they're dispersed, throughout the country.
Yeah.
Banking is a real successful one. Franchise systems are highly successful. So those are just a handful. We've been real successful with education, universities, both public and private, colleges. The list goes on. There's a lot of them out there that they got multiple locations, multiple users, and multiple brands. They're a good candidate.
Well, and when I think about you calling on these types of accounts and the possibility then to bring in office products as a secondary, which really leads me to our last question, because we've talked about some of the good, the bad, and the ugly as it relates to this industry. For an office products independent, for them to get into promotional products, what impact could that have overall for their company, for their business, for their growth?
Well, the obvious one is there's a lot of revenue out there to be had. So there's incremental revenue lift just from I'm selling promotional products. But how that's impacted the rest of the business, some of it is really difficult to measure, because I think that it really has changed our organization in a couple different ways. It's definitely reduced margin pressures on office products, because customers that are buying multiple product lines, the desire to go and beat us up on pricing on copy paper and paper clips melts away when we're providing all this other value. It's protected our existing relationships because it makes them stickier. So those customers are more profitable, they're stickier, and we're getting more revenue from them. So that's for our existing customers, but there's also been benefits on how we go to market for new business development too.
So when I think about new business, I get kind of excited about the idea of you're calling on a different level buyer, a different buyer, and I would imagine it might even be easier to get appointments than calling and trying to get an appointment to sell office products. What is your experience with that?
Well, we've definitely experienced that, and I was talking to actually a guy that's in the print and promotional business that was talking about getting into office products. And he said, he told me,
Tell him no.
I told him, come on in, the water's fine. No, I was telling him the good, bad, and the ugly. But he told me that in his experience, that going in to sell promotional products and apparel, and he said leading with apparel was his number one way that he gets in the door. And, I'll tell you a quick story.
Right?
I'll tell you a quick story. We've got a guy in the East Coast that was calling on this manufacturing company in multiple locations. Buys a lot of all of these categories. And he went in trying to lead with office products. They absolutely wouldn't talk to him. Then he went and tried to talk about print. They didn't want to talk to him either. They said, you know what, we've got a long-standing relationship with a local company. But when he went in and asked them, he said, tell me about what you're doing with your corporate apparel program. They called him back on a voicemail and said, well, why are you asking me about my corporate apparel program? Told him about the online solution, on demand versus inventory. I can just distribute this, all throughout the country. One call got the appointment, and then used that as a way to get the office products. And they said, listen, if you can solve this problem over here, we'll give you we have no problem giving you a chance at the office products. We don't have any allegiance to Staples. So
yeah, that's a good story. And I also feel too, when we're talking about success and impact for the traditional office products dealer, if they move in this direction, I'm thinking about the salespeople, because they're different in a way in terms of maybe, I don't want to say a higher caliber, but more consultative than commodity based. And I'm wondering if you've seen like a change in maybe the growth of the sales organization or the skill set or maybe the ability to attract a different type of sales rep to the organization? You've got a lot of young, aggressive sales reps, so I'm curious about that.
All of the above, Krista, because, once we developed a process, a sales process around calling on this higher level decision maker, the consultative approach, and then also positioning the other revenue streams that we want to pull through along with it. Yeah. Selling top down is a lot easier than selling bottom up. So salespeople got really excited about leading with these other products because it gave them the chance to go out, and when they would win that business, they would grow that customer a lot faster because now they could pull in office products after the fact. So it's helped us kind of lock in some salespeople that were looking for opportunities to develop new skills. It's helped us attract some people from within the industry that are higher end salespeople.
Yeah.
That said, you guys have the total package because you've got this technology offering. I've got the multiple product lines. And those are the folks that we want to bring in to the organization. So, and it's a lot more exciting for, millennials that, we're all trying to bring those people into our sales organization and trying to bring them into the industry, but what are we going to get them excited about? And
yeah, I agree.
The promotional products is something that they're, more drawn to. It's fun.
Yeah.
Something different.
We've talked a lot today about a variety of different things and kind of sharing successes and experiences, and I appreciate you being our guest today. Is there any final comments or anything that you want to add that we might have missed or you felt that our audience would be interested in hearing?
Wow. You know what? I think that, we've covered most of it, to be committed and to be all in and to know that it's a marathon and not a sprint.
Yeah.
And, investing in the education to get out of the, getting out of our comfort zone to learn something new. It was challenging, but it was very rewarding. So
if you had to do it all over again, you absolutely would go down this path.
Absolutely. And we lost customers over it, and you know what? That was okay, because the upside was really, building this whole separate business unit that wasn't just an add-on, but really changed how, the whole organization, and changed our office products business.
Yeah, that's for sure. So I'm going to go ahead and let you go. Thanks again for being so brave and being our first guest on our inaugural show. Also, I just wanted to ask you, I know that you guys have done a terrific job in growing this area, and if there are people on the phone that would like to contact you, how do you feel about us giving your contact information and they can reach out to you? You all right with that?
Come on, come all.
Okay. I mean, I'm not going to, I don't want your phone ringing off the hook, so only those that really are interested in understanding it further. Here is Pete's contact information. Also, you can see ours to the left. If you want to give me a call, feel free to do that. And to our audience, I want you to be aware that we're going to be having a talk show. It will take place the third Wednesday of every month. So I would appreciate it if you would mark your calendar. We're going to continue to have exciting guests that will be able to share their stories. And these are things that could potentially really affect your business and help you grow. With ID Growth, we're all about the independent dealer. We care about you, and we care about your success. So thanks for joining us, and have a great day.